So when someone really wants to hide the truth, they don't bury it. They bury you in distraction. So imagine you're walking down a crowded street and someone bumps into you hard enough to make you actually stumble. So naturally, your attention locks into that person because you're probably pretty pissed off, while someone else is sneaking your wallet out of your pocket. And as annoyed as you were about the bump, you realize that the bump wasn't the problem. It was merely the distraction, while the bigger problem was happening behind the scenes. And distractions work exactly this way in relationships too. And oh yes, in politics as well. The truth is, most of the tactics we deal with in toxic relationships are also playing out to some extent on a larger scale. And we're going to talk about that a little bit as we go through these 4 tactics. So my name is Christina, and I help people identify toxic patterns and find peace in the aftermath of relationships with narcissists. And in this video, you're about to learn 4 ways narcissists use distraction to keep us occupied. Because this isn't one of those tactics that's obvious until after the fact. And even then, we don't see the connection every time. So the first tactic is called the fight switch. And this is a form of distraction where someone does something they know will start a fight because for whatever reason, that fight is serving them in the moment. So let's look at an example. Imagine you're in an on-again, off-again relationship, and out of nowhere, this person does something they know will set you off. And this tactic reminds me of a video I saw recently that was captioned "When I'm Mad at My Wife," where the guy was running around the kitchen doing things like leaving the microwave door open, putting an empty milk carton back in the fridge, and sprinkling crumbs on the counter. And the video was meant to be funny, but it's those little things that when you're in a toxic relationship can often be the last straw. So back to the example where they do something like this, something that you fought about for a million times before. And when you inevitably call them out on it, they roll their eyes or they play innocent. So either they're implying that you're overreacting, or they might act like they had no idea that you'd have gotten so upset, even though you got this exact level of upset every single time they've done it over years of your relationship. But either way, their reaction is about as infuriating as the behavior, maybe even more so. Because even though there are so many bigger issues than whatever this little thing was, you feel so defeated that you can't seem to get on the same page with this little thing. So how could you even hope to settle some of those big things? And right then and there, you're done. You've lost all hope in this relationship, and you just tell them to get out. Maybe for the 57th time, but you definitely mean it in the moment. And what you don't know is that this is exactly what they wanted. So maybe they had a romantic weekend planned with someone else, or they had a fun weekend planned with friends and you already had plans with them. And the only way they could swing it without you knowing that they were treating you like an option instead of a priority was to blow it all up over something small. Because then they could easily come back when it's convenient for them and convince you not to throw it away over something silly. But the truth behind it wasn't silly at all. They just had you distracted enough so you didn't see it. Now, this was a pretty big example, but this tactic plays out in smaller ways too. So maybe they don't want to go to a party, so they piss you off a few minutes beforehand, and you tell them to just stay home. Or maybe they know you want to have a serious conversation, and then they do something nice and unexpected to distract you from the negativity and buy themselves some more time. And naturally, distraction plays out in politics too. So you've probably noticed how it seems like society is on a runaway train to hell lately. And every single piece of news is an obvious grab at our attention to get us fighting each other instead of what? Maybe you have some ideas about what all these distractions are about. Let us know in the comments. But whether in politics or toxic relationships, the point is distraction. And the distraction is very much like the person who bumps you in the street while someone else is stealing your wallet. And the only way around this one is to pay attention to the patterns. If someone in your life seems to keep doing the same thing they know pisses you off, it's probably intentional. So don't get so lost in your outrage that you don't see the trick for what it is. So another form of distraction uses triangulation, which is when a manipulative person brings in a third party, real or even imagined, to create division and confusion. So the focus shifts off of them. But in this context, we're talking about a very specific type of triangulation when they intentionally get both sides to hate one another, often before they've even met. So say you're with someone who never introduces you to a certain friend. So you only know what you hear of them. And the more you hear, the less you want to know. So maybe you're hearing how they cheated on their partner or they stole money from their grandma. Whether it's something they said or something they did, everything you hear goes against your personal values. And it's not just you hearing stories like this. The narcissist is doing the same thing on the other side. So maybe they're telling their friend that you're uptight and judgmental. And everything they say about you leads that friend to believe they should be on guard around you. So if you ever do cross paths, you're both pretty tight-lipped because you've been primed to dislike each other. And just like that, you've been divided so thoroughly that you'll never compare notes. And the truth about whatever they're hiding slips through the cracks. So another common example of this type of manipulation is when parents pit their kids against one another. So maybe they'll say something like, "Why can't you be more like your brother?" Or, "Your sister always does nice things for me." So they get to pull your strings without being the enemy. Until, of course, you're older and realize what was happening all along. And to bring in things on a larger scale, I think it's pretty obvious that this country has never been more divided than it is today, and that is no accident. So let's move on to the next tactic, the rumor smokescreen. And so this is when someone starts a wave of gossip or drama, not because they care about the gossip itself, but because it hides something bigger. So imagine you start sensing that your partner's energy seems to have changed. They're distant and edgy. And now you start hearing that they've been telling people you've been acting unstable. Maybe they say you've been drinking a lot lately or that you've been just hard to be around. And it's super confusing to you because you've been fine. Nothing's changed. But you start noticing that people are looking at you differently. So there you are making a joke you've made 100 times before. This time's a little different. This time you notice someone making a side glance at your partner as if they have some sort of inside joke about you. Or you walk into a room and suddenly things get quiet. So naturally you go into damage control mode and you start explaining and defending, and ultimately trying to prove that you're the same person you always were. But while you're busy clearing up your reputation, they're laying the groundwork for their exit. Or maybe worse, the story they'll tell once they're gone. That whole smear campaign. And by the time you realize what's happened, they've built a ready-made narrative to cover whatever they were doing behind the scenes. Whether it's cheating, stealing, slipping into someone's DMs. You were never the subject of the rumor, really. You were the cover for it. The gossip was bait. The truth was the thing that was disappearing into the background every time they told the story about you. And if that feels familiar, you might also notice that the same strategy is used on a massive scale. Culture wars, viral outrage stories, celebrity scandals. It's all the same smokescreen. We're fed gossip-level chaos, so we won't notice the real moves happening in the background. And by the time we look back, what mattered most is already gone. And now things are kind of amping up and we're getting to the loudest of these distraction tactics. And if you've ever been with someone who thrives in chaos, you know this pattern well. So the week is finally calm, you're finally breathing, maybe even thinking, hey, we've turned a corner here. And then there it is, boom. They pick a fight over something meaningless. Maybe it was a look or a tone. Maybe it was just a memory that came up from last year that suddenly matters so much to them today. It always catches you off guard. And you spent hours trying to make sense of it, trying to find what really triggered it. But there's no trigger. The fight itself was the trigger. That was it. There was nothing more to it. Because as long as you're fighting, you're not noticing the real story. You're not noticing the late night messages, the money that vanished, or how different they are when they think no one's watching. You're not noticing how every time you start to feel grounded, they find a way to shake that ground. And this kind of chaos doesn't just confuse you, it conditions you. It teaches your body that calm is temporary and that safety is a setup. So you start living on the edge, waiting for the next explosion. And when peace feels suspicious, you stop looking for it, and that's how they win. The wild part is when you finally lose it, when you cry or yell or say you can't do this anymore, they point and say, see, you're the unstable one. The chaos becomes proof of your guilt. The fire they started becomes evidence that you can't handle the heat. And on a smaller scale, you'll see this with the friend who always has a new crisis right when you're about to talk about something important. Every time you need to set a boundary, there's suddenly a meltdown or an emergency. The drama keeps you too busy putting out their fires to notice your own burnout. And when you zoom out on this one, the pattern doesn't change, only the scale does. Every week, there's new outrage. Actually, these days, it's more like every hour. There's a new headline designed to keep us scrolling, fighting, and, more importantly, distracted. We move from one crisis to the next, never stopping long enough to see the bigger pattern. The chaos isn't the byproduct, it's the design. Because when people are exhausted and reactive, they don't ask the hard questions. They just look for the next thing to fight about. Or they hang their heads and try to wait out the storm. So in the end, every one of these tactics, the fights, the rumors, the chaos, all serve the same purpose, to distract you while they stay in control. It's the pickpocket thing all over again. You're focused on the bump, and before you know it, your peace and clarity are gone. And that's how they keep power, by keeping you reacting. Because as long as you're spinning, you're not seeing clearly. But once you spot the pattern, the game's over. They lose control. And if you want to see what that looks like, what narcissists say when the control starts slipping, watch this next video right here. It's all about how they act when the manipulation stops working. And if you found this video helpful, go ahead and give that a like before you go, and I'll see you next time.